Hello, everybody. Welcome to a group game theory reaction. I'm Psychic.
I'm Evan.
Cool.
That was a really awkward pause.
And then we also have Arcade. We're watching the finale of Game Theory.
Yeah, the finale of Game Theory.
Of his FNAF timeline.
That's the one. That's the one.
Everyone knows that MatPat Game Theory is the only correct theorist.
This is going to be the final game theory because everybody is going to kill MatPat for it.
Real, that's true. I've heard not so good things about it so far.
Really?
Should we start with a disclaimer that we like MatPat and our if we disagree that it's not because we dislike him?
It's not personal.
If you attack someone,
it's very
personally because you don't like the theory, you're a garbage human being.
Yeah, true.
Okay,
true.
love you.
Facts. All right, let's go.
Wow. Okay.
Ooh.
Hello, Internet! Welcome to Game Theory,
Hello.
and the final part of my FNAF timeline, where today we're bringing our story to a close by talking about the most complicated and controversial part of the timeline, the part that I've been dreading most of all, the end. The moment where we're finally forced to come to some definitive and difficult answers trying to explain what the heck we were watching in Security Breach. The last two episodes have been about death. The death of Afton's family, the deaths of multiple children, the death of the franchise itself as Mike and Henry figuratively and literally burn it all down. Today's episode, though, and the current end of this franchise, is instead all about rebirth, the return of old characters in new forms, and the controversial rebirth of the franchise entering the next era of its story.
In the flesh.
But before we hop into the timeline, due to scheduling conflicts, I won't be able to have any live talk back after this episode. I know, I promised one, I was really excited about it, but I just couldn't make it work with my schedule and all the other guests' schedules. That said, I still do plan on doing one over the coming weeks with special guests. Just make sure that you're subscribed and either have all notifications turned on, or you're just watching our community tab for the announcement as to when that's gonna happen. And now,
we should be the
further
guests.
ado, we finally reach the end and a new beginning.
It should be us for real.
We really should.
Post purple guy.
Fazbear Entertainment.
Oh, here's the FNAF 3
There's
sound.
no need for you to return to work next week, as Fazbear Entertainment is no longer a corporate entity.
All debts had been paid, all assets redistributed. The company was outright dissolved.
I love the way he does
Memories
this
of
narratively.
The horrors that had happened there started to fade away in the public consciousness.
Same.
The people were gone too. William was dead. Henry was gone. A whole generation of young Emilys and Aftons had lost their lives to the horrors of the pizzeria. All of them collateral damage to the man in the bunny suit. Everyone the company had ever touched was dead and gone. Well, all except one.
Pay your child support, you deadbeats! I'm keeping the diamond ring. I
What?
also set the house on fire.
Clara Afton. She'd been
What?
there in the
Wait.
What?
Pause.
What? Pause. Pause it. Pause. First of all, he's calling her
2 minutes
Clara.
in.
We're calling her Clara now.
2 minutes.
Oh no. I have a question. Why is she named Clara if Afton's not called Vlad?
True.
Why does everyone say that? Everyone says her name is
It's
Clara.
a placeholder name.
I guess so,
It's a
but like,
placeholder name because we don't have. Yeah.
sure.
But
why didn't he call? Why didn't he call the bite victim Evan though? That's the thing.
Shut up. My
Okay.
question. My question is, in the patient 46 tapes.
Thank you.
They say that
That was actually
the
Vanessa's.
mother, the Bill's wife or whatever, did something after the custody case, and that's very connected to the Aftons, right? So,
Given the fact that it was
we
like,
assume that she committed suicide.
given the fact that it was bleeped
it-
out, yeah,
Yeah.
it seems like she committed
Probably
It's
suicide.
implied that it was self-unaliving.
Yes. So she is not alive. Also, she would be too old at this point anyway. Like she would be dead. Let's be real.
Here's what I think he's gonna say though. He is going to say, this might be a stretch.
Remnant.
He's gonna say that this is connected to the post-it note room of the Afton family sitting around the table, and that is why the Afton family is there, because she was responsible for building
Wasn't
it.
the mother also at the head of the table?
Maybe we shouldn't be predicting what he's gonna say, and we should just be watching.
Let's watch.
Yeah, let's watch.
Thriving business, the ideal family, but shortly after their youngest son died, things started to change. William had become distant, lost in his work, obsessive. She had watched him change from this irritatingly brilliant man that she had fallen in love with to a drunken monster struggling to hold himself together. And despite her trying to reach out to him in those desperate days, he was just too far gone.
Reverb moment.
Reverb moment, yeah.
Didn't he already play this song in a previous video?
Yeah.
To let me in.
For her sake, she had to leave the relationship, and from there, she largely faded into obscurity. A mystery
why would
from
she come
William's
back?
past. A
Yeah.
footnote.
I don't know.
And how is
That
she
was fine.
alive?
She
She's
wanted
like
to leave
103.
behind. She tried to move forward,
1,000.
never wanting to hear the name Freddy Fazbear again. A time
But she
defined
always
by
comes back.
mistakes and
Okay,
broken
real.
promises. But then, the paperwork started to arrive. As Fazbear Entertainment began to close as a corporate entity, suddenly her mail was flooded with notifications, requests, obligations. She had been there
Could she
since the
be-
beginning,
could
helping
she be
William
M.
in the
Afton?
early days of his business. And now, as a shareholder and
Mom
sole living
Afton?
member
Mother
of the
Afton.
Afton family, all
Mom Afton.
copyrights and trademarks of both Afton Robotics
Or is Michael
and
alive?
Fazbear
Question mark.
Entertainment passed on to her. Memories of this past life that she had long left behind. Looking at the blueprints, the contracts, the memos, she felt old wounds begin to reopen. The regrets of a happy
So she
family that had been
further
torn
opens
away from
them?
her.
Like, what?
William had always been brilliant. That's what had attracted her to him in the first place. But he'd also been too blinded by obsession and pride. He was too jealous, too petty, too unable to actually see a bigger picture. But now, holding the paperwork that contained decades of heartbreak and trauma, she realized it was her turn. She was holding the power.
What?
This was her chance.
What?
One thought
What?
resonated in her head. I will put them back
Are
together.
you kidding?
What?
Them all back
No.
Where is this
No.
coming from,
to
though?
rebuild this
What's
family.
the
To rebuild
proof for
the
this?
pieces
Yeah, where does
that
this come
he
from?
said to reclaim the kids that
said this would be
Fazbear had stolen
controversial.
from her.
He did.
Looking at William's work now laid out before her, she knew
The
he had
narrative
been
is
on
okay,
something,
but there's no
collecting
evidence
remnants,
for it.
Robotic
Right.
humanoids.
I wouldn't even argue the
digital
narrative's
transformers.
okay,
The
'cause she's
pieces
like
were all in place, they
100.
were just scattered, fragmented. It was almost like there were too many ideas going in too many different directions. It was such an important idea that she reiterated that point to herself. There were too many ideas going in too many different directions. That said, there
Like in this
had to be a
video.
way to save it all. She just
Yeah.
needed to put it all back together. But how? To
Literally.
rebuild her family, she would first
Give
need
him a
to
chance,
rebuild
give him
the
a chance.
Yeah,
franchise
yeah,
that
yeah.
had stolen
Let's give it
them
a
away
chance.
from her.
Maybe
With
he found
ownership over
evidence.
The characters, their license.
If
I'm
he
waiting
just
for
doesn't
the
explain at the
grandfather
end,
clock
then
Their
evidence.
name
the
converted
grandfather
the
clock.
corporation back to an LLC, a structure for smaller businesses that are usually family-owned. The irony was fitting.
Didn't
From
he
there,
say that it
she
was
would need
Elizabeth in that
remnant,
video that he
lots
just
of it.
cited?
Remnant was the key. Clearly, in the later years of his life, William had been using Circus Babies Entertainment and Rentals as a remnant farm, sending robots to kids' birthday parties in the hopes of nabbing bits of the stuff here and there. But
I
clearly,
agree
it
with
wasn't
this.
enough. He had, what, like 4, maybe 5 animatronics going out every week? No. It was a decent idea, but to get the remnant they required, it needed scale. Dozens, hundreds of animatronics
FNAF
all
AR.
out there, all gathering remnant from unsuspecting customers. But to do that would require help. Something
And I mean, we
William
do
would
that in,
never ask for. William had kept
in
everything
FNAF AR, we
in-house.
collect
His
remnant.
obsession with control limited
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Clara, though, she wasn't nearly that precious. A plan like this required partners, people outside
Yeah,
of
exactly.
Fazbear to do the heavy lifting. So she
Right,
contacted
this
a
is a fair
mid-sized
point.
delivery company, DLZ Shipping Solutions, to help build replicas
Yeah.
Nice,
of all the
yeah.
original
This is
animatronics.
AR.
With meal delivery apps being all the rage, why not an animatronic
Didn't he say that
delivery
AR is not
service?
canon?
Order one to celebrate your birthday, your Halloween party. How about a
He's gotta
4th
make
of
up his
July
mind a little
picnic?
bit.
We'll invite Liberty Chica and
I
4th
think he
of
watched
July
Underscores.
Freddy on over.
He
So
was
make
like-
sure that they get skins for every occasion. Chocolate Bonnies for Easter, Shamrock Freddy's
It's
for
not
St.
canon
Patrick's
because
Day,
I don't
Dia
like
de
it.
las Muertos
Like, he
Chicas.
literally
And
said that,
thus,
yeah.
the Fazbear Funtime service was born.
That's right, with the Fazbear.
Markiplier.
Be alone again. You'll always have someone watching your back.
Was it ridiculous? Absolutely. Was it a sellout? No doubt. It was exactly the sort of thing that William would have hated, but it needed to be done to get enough remnant. Normally, the novelty of ordering an animatronic wore off after
Why would
like,
William
what,
actually
one,
hate that,
two
though?
times, but with new skins
Bro.
for new holidays, suddenly you had yourself an animatronic perfect for every
was
occasion.
Underscore's
It would
dream.
keep people hooked. It would keep them ordering the latest and greatest that Fazbear Entertainment LLC had to offer, and all the while they'd be collecting and returning the remnant back to her. In a word, it was brilliant. There was just one problem with it. No one trusted the Fazbear name. The company's brand was still mud in the public eye. No one would want to hire animatronics from a restaurant franchise known for murdering children.
But like,
nothing kills a party
the animatronics in AR are
death,
possessed by glitch traps, so VR kind of has to happen
find a way
first.
to discredit the stories that had come
But, like,
before. She
who's
needed
to
to
say
win back
Michael
the
didn't
public's
do all this?
affections, reactivate some nostalgia for the spooky stories.
why does
of
it
her
have to be
childhood.
her?
She needed
When she's literally dead.
multiple games, in fact.
They lied to us. They lied to all of us. They told us that the whole point of this VR game was to undo the bad PR done by a rogue indie game developer. But that's not true at all. Those indie games were designed to conceal and make light of what happened. This isn't just an attempt to rebrand. It's an elaborate cover-up.
Struggling game developers were a dime a dozen online, most working on their magnum opus between shifts at the Dollar General. So she found one. Steve just picked him out of obscurity. The right mix of desperate and doofus, willing to say and do anything for a couple extra bucks. And he fell right in line.
Not
as
really.
expected,
He was kind of
delivering
coerced.
Stupid little things with dumb generic names like Mangle's Quest, Balloon Boy's
He was
Air
catfish.
Adventure, Five Nights at Freddy's. Bad gameplay with even worse graphics, but hey, they got the job done. People were suddenly talking about the clues inside of these things, searching for the hidden lore. They were actively making jokes about dead kids at pizzerias. Her husband's twisted history of serial murder had suddenly been reduced to a mere Nancy Drew mystery to be solved. The plan had worked. Freddy Fazbear's was suddenly more popular than ever. Things were going shockingly well. Her takeover and reboot of the franchise was full and complete. Suddenly infused with cash, she built the largest, most ambitious project yet, the Mega Pizzaplex. William had always been so visionary, but always thought so small.
She built it
scale.
herself.
Yeah.
Not her though. She knew that this latest project
Minecraft.
needed to be big,
In Minecraft.
flashy. It needed to
Cup
be
of
a
Tea
palace
EXE is
for
actually
children,
Mrs.
a
Afton.
place that got people talking and checking out the latest in Fazbear products. So with a steady supply of remnant flowing in, it was finally time. The stage was set.
A steady
It was time to
supply
get
of
to a
remnant
real goal,
flowing in,
literally
what?
Rebuilding a family.
Oh god.
See,
Mark.
this is okay.
Okay,
I just disagree with Mrs. Afton.
Okay. The only reason it's Mr. Afton because I think he's like, I don't know who else to put here. Like, that's literally the only reason. And I don't think that's a very good reason.
You could just say Michael's still alive, or you could say it's someone random that just wanted to restart the company because reasons. Like,
Yeah, it could just be a random person that knows about Remnant. They'd be like, oh, I want to do it myself.
Yeah.
So, predicting what he's about to say, I'm pretty sure it's like it does make narrative sense for it to be the case. But again, like, there's nothing in the games to signify this is the case at all.
Unless you think M. Afton is like Mrs. Afton. But he hasn't even brought that up.
But that's not even like not a name. Like, why would it be like? Why would that be the case? Okay, here's what I would say. Here's what I would say.
Mrs. Afton unalive. The thing about the tape.
Yeah. What's the thing about the tapes?
No, you go. You go ahead.
Okay. Well, what I think is his entire the beginning of the timeline was entirely based around the idea of William witnessing something as a kid and wanting to recreate it. So why can't that just be the case for the Pizzaplex? Right? Like, wouldn't that make just as much sense?
I guess.
Yeah, and the whole thing about Mrs. Afton being it, no, because the tapes, the CDs, sorry, they make it pretty obvious that Mrs. Afton unalived herself.
Right.
I think that's a crucial thing that he's missing out.
agree.
Okay.
Unless
I
the
would
backstory is a lie.
Which even if it was, she'd still be like at least like 100 by now.
No. I can help out with that. Vanessa's file was hacked into by supposedly patient 46. And so, because patient 46 is influenced by Glitch Trap, that means that it's telling the history of the Aftons, because Glitch Trap is Afton, right?
Yeah.
So, it is Afton's story, or it's related to Afton.
Yeah.
So, 100%, when it says that the mother did something, like, that is relating to Mrs. Afton.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think undeniably.
Well, we
It
got
can't be
20
anyone
more
else,
minutes of
like-
this, guys.
And it's Bill, right? So it's pretty clear.
I want to know where he's going with this. I want to know. Like,
Yeah, me
too.
continue.
I'm intrigued.
5. The first was obvious.
Yeah.
Crying child. Her little boy. The one that was the first to get ripped away from her. She'd seen down in his bunker that William had gotten very close to replicating artificial humans using animatronic technology.
You call that
that's
close?
exactly
I don't think that's very close, yeah.
Boy from the ground up using robotic parts. His shaggy brown hair, his favorite
Shaggy?
Here we
shirt,
go.
and now the small sensitivity
Shaggy?
like the band-aid on his left
Oh,
knee. William's
God.
research had even found ways of making animatronics.
Why
that
would
could
she be
breathe
the one to
and
make
process
it?
Food, making them virtually indistinguishable from a typical human. He would never have any idea of what he actually was unless he was explicitly told. The only things that could
Here
possibly
it is.
ruin the illusion were any overrides to his internal systems. If something were to, say, interfere with the cameras that he had in his eyes, or cause some sort of a core reboot to his hard drive, or x-ray his metallic bones, then yeah, he would be exposed. But otherwise, to the outside world, he was just your typical, normal human boy. She worked down in the
Who kills
bowels
his
of the
friends?
Pizzaplex.
Yeah.
Plays arcade
One
games.
thing to build him was another to help him remember his identity. He died
There we
so
go.
young, so early in their history that there was no preserved memories for him. No documentation that she could just download into his digital brain. So bit by bit, she trained him, forcing him to remember who he was. In a corner of the room, she even made a makeshift dinner table, a reminder of
Yeah.
their happier days.
Ozone's
The
a
family
genius.
recreated 2 brothers,
I called
a
it.
sister,
You
a
called it.
father, and the mother at the head of the table. The one in charge, the
Smart
one
man.
in command, the one bringing all of this to fruition.
In order
But
to, like,
his
train him,
progress
why
was
would she
admittedly slower than she would
literally
like.
give
At first,
him
he'd
no
only
head?
communicate through simple ones and zeros, then rudimentary drawings and crude letters. But bit by bit, images of his
Yum.
past life started to come through. Balloons, colors, houses, bears and faces, birthday parties. All for me. Gregory was alive. As the robot boy embraced her, she felt a
I
warmth.
think this
that she
could
had
be the case, except without Mrs.
This
Afton.
was the joy
Yeah.
that she
Yeah.
was working towards. This was what it was all for. Her son, back in her arms
Because
again.
it sounds
The
good.
plan
It
was
sounds
working.
plausible.
What- can you
Just
pause it for a
minus the
second?
Mrs. Afton
William.
stuff.
Can you
The
pause it for a
family was
second?
tru-
Okay, so an idea that I had was, what if, say, Michael built Gregory, because that, like, the code is in his room, so if that does mean that Gregory's a robot, wouldn't it be make more sense that he would have made it? And also, Michael's room is in the Pizzaplex, right? So, is it possible that maybe they found Gregory in there and just didn't have a use for him, so they threw him down there?
I totally agree because like who's like as I said before, who's to say that this is Mrs. Afton and not Michael Afton?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure Michael Afton could do all of this, right?
Yeah, and it would make
He's
sense
got
because,
his
like-
life somewhere.
Yeah? What?
Just you said Michael's room. I think earlier in another theory, he said that that was actually not Michael in the chair. It was like Mrs. Afton in Midnight Motorist, which is. I bet he's gonna use that theory of his to support this evidence. I bet.
Maybe.
Yeah, but like that room in Sister Location
that's
is literally
Michael's room.
the one that we see in Security Breach. So it is Michael's room. So
Yeah.
that's just But yeah, you could just say that they had no use for Gregory when they found him in that room, so they just threw him down into the sewer, and maybe he just became aware on his own, or with the help of like another robot that's also down there.
Thing is, there's something on my mind, guys, and it's 3 letters: G, and Y. Yeah, the story GGY kind of debunks this, I think.
Gookie.
I don't know if it debunks it, but it's heavily.
It doesn't help it.
Basically.
Totally the case. Yeah. Let's continue.
Yep, let's continue.
Truly going to be put together, she would need him. And she knew exactly where he was, in the ruins of that old Freddy Fazbear's pizza place where Henry had trapped him. In fact, that's specifically why she insisted on building the Pizzaplex there over the sinkhole. It was the best place to hide what her true intentions were with the entire operation.
Why is she
Digging
just
through the
evil
wreckage,
now?
She found him. He was right where she thought he'd be. Seeing the putrid
Yeah.
shell of the Springtrap suit, though, was not something she was prepared for. The rotting corpse of William Afton was disgusting. Scorched flesh fused into the fur lining. Hollow black sockets where eyes once
That's a
were.
good screenshot.
A smell that reeked of burned carbon and blood.
Me after a night
It was
out.
no longer flesh. It was just the
Funny.
tangled
You know,
seams of a
I just
creature
kind of realized
with a
something.
hole.
Can you pause it again for a second? I have another thing to say.
Oh my gosh! Evan,
I'm sorry,
please.
but I have something else to say. He says that this all happened with Steve, like after FNAF 6 had already like been burned down, right? But that doesn't make sense if Security Breach is in 2035, which is what he's saying, because in Help Wanted it said that it was the last few decades, meaning it was like at least like 20, 30 years, right? So that can't really be the case because Steve would have had to been would have had to have been, if Security Breach was in 2035, then Steve would have had to been like recruited like earlier in like the 2000s or something like that.
Who freaking knows at this point?
Okay, sure. Okay, move on now.
Man had fallen. It was clear that her work was cut out for her on this one. Afton was practically lifeless. The man may not have been able to die, but he was about as close as you could come. And his body would need a lot of reconstruction. Replacement arms and endoskeleton reinforcements were the top priority. Maybe pulled from their new line of glam rock animatronics. She'd have to see if they had any spare Bonnie parts lying around that they could steal. In the meantime, though, she threw the husk that was once her husband into a life support pod infused with aerosolized remnant to help keep him stable. But more important than recovering his body was recovering his mind. In his current state, he was comatose, an empty shell. Severe brain damage starts at temperatures over 108 degrees Fahrenheit. 42 degrees Celsius, and years of repeated fires had burned his brain to goo. Gone was the brilliant, frustrating mind that had drawn her to him in the first place. But she had a plan. Unlike her darling boy Gregory, Afton had found ways to record his consciousness. Fundamentally, the brain is only a series of electrical connections after all, so why couldn't you replicate that in the form of a standard circuit board? In essence, you could create a digital consciousness. And one thing she knew about William, he was nothing if not cautious. A planner. Someone who had backup plans to his backup plans. And sure enough, there it was, buried in piles of old animatronic CPUs, a record of Afton himself. But she
Afton
needed
is
someone
Batman
to test
confirmed.
it.
Someone was definitely here during the night. It had to have been the client. I mean, they sent us that stuff in the first place with no explanation, told us to scan it, said it would expedite the process so we wouldn't need to program any pathfinding ourselves.
Unlike the other games that she'd paid to have made in the past, this one had a different purpose. This wasn't about PR, it was about getting William back up and running, spreading his virus to the masses.
You acknowledge that Fazbear Entertainment is not responsible for accidental digital consciousness transference, real-world manifestations of digital characters.
She hired a new developer, Silver Parasol Games, to scan the boards and bring her husband into the system. And because of the immersive nature of VR, William's consciousness would be able to merge with the player, giving him a new body, a new agency. There was just one complication. Afton's hold wasn't as powerful as she had hoped. He wasn't able to gain complete control. The first trial run, Jeremy, was so desperate to escape from his grasp that he sliced his own face off with a paper shredder. Messy. Afton's followers were reluctant, to say the
Actually,
least,
it's a paper
but it was
cutter.
the second attempt that looked like it had the potential to kill two birds with one stone. Enter Vanessa. Mrs. Afton wanted a surrogate daughter. Her darling Elizabeth would have been a young woman at this point if she had lived. And Clara wanted someone who wasn't Elizabeth, but could be just like her.
She would
Could
be
have
like
just
70.
rebuilt her
What?
like Gregory? Sure.
Young
She
woman,
decided
what?
against it because she wanted an actual human mother-daughter connection. Well, that, and it would be redundant and narratively unsatisfying to have two robot kids in the same family. What could she say? William had put a lot of tools on the table for her to use. And she
Looks
was
like
planning
Michael
on
in
using
Sicily
them all.
Location.
Plus, Elizabeth had always been so
Spitting
loyal
out
to
Ennard.
Daddy. It was time to give her a second chance, a true choice. And Vanessa seemed to be the perfect candidate to fill the role.
Your dad's name was Bill? Your dad didn't play fair, did he? He used to make your mum look bad in court. He manipulated you. I know your mum after she lost the custody case. I was supposed to be a good girl.
So
he's
is that her
acknowledging
real
that.
backstory?
Huh.
Is that Vanessa's real backstory?
I think that's what he's saying. I think he's just saying that she chose someone with a similar backstory.
But we're saying that was the Afton family because that's why we're saying that it can't be Mrs. Afton. So was that her actual backstory?
I feel like
I don't know. It's confusing.
I
I
feel
doubt
like
it.
Rip ozone. I feel like I don't know what I feel like. He's acknowledging that thing, but he's not applying. He's saying that it's a similar backstory, but he's not applying it to the Aftons either. He's just saying that she's still alive, which I still don't get because she'd be like 100. And he said young woman Vanessa Elizabeth would be, which she would be like 70. So I feel like his like timing on some of this stuff isn't the greatest exactly.
Right. Well, let's continue.
Yeah, I
She
think he's
started as
just
a
not
QA
taking
tester
a lot
at Silver
of stuff
Parasol
into account
Games,
here.
a VR game development company that was part of her plan to bring back William. But more importantly, Vanessa checked all the correct boxes. Right age, blonde, green eyes,
Not the right
with a
age.
fondness for flowers and the outdoors. In many ways, it was her
Yeah,
daughter
not the right
all
age.
over again.
Not
Except
in the
it wasn't
slightest.
just looks and personality. What really mattered was Vanessa's mind. Underconfident, coming from a broken home, motherless, able to be manipulated. Yes.
Motherless
She would do
behavior.
nicely.
Skill
she would be
issue.
the one to save dear old daddy, just as the real Elizabeth would have wanted.
I will make you proud, Daddy.
While testing the VR game, William's digital consciousness merged with Vanessa. Oh sure, she fought.
What happened to
fragmenting
Ozone?
Afton's code into a series of tapes hidden across
I
the
don't
game,
know, it's still
trying to
here?
do web
No.
searches to regain control over her life, but it wasn't enough. She was weaker than Jeremy.
She got
was a
controlled by
thrall
Glittrap.
that, despite occasional moments of lucidity, had to obey. And with Vanessa, it was a 2-for-1 deal. She was getting a daughter back while also bringing her husband one step closer to reactivation. She just had to make sure that Vanessa was headed the right way. The reborn Gregory was an expert hacker, part of the benefits of being an Afton and a robot. So Clara had him keeping tabs on Vanessa,
He cited
hacking into her
GGY.
emails and trailing her therapy sessions to ensure the future Elizabeth was falling in line. If any of the therapists started to ask too many questions, they were promptly dismissed from their positions. And while Gregory kept tabs on Vanessa's personal life, Mrs. Afton made sure to clear a path for her professionally. With Silver Parasol's collapse at the hands of the anomaly, she then had the possessed Vanessa bring the contaminated circuit boards to DLZ shipping and the Fazbear Funtime service. More glitches, more Remnant, more Afton. But it was her last move that was the best. In a true masterpiece of poetry, she brought Vanessa over to be Chief Security Officer at the Pizzaplex. A true family tradition to
fill
don
in
the
Michael's
hat and
role.
badge. And all it took was a recommendation from the top as well as some emails marked for deletion. Sure, Vanessa didn't have relevant experience for the job, but when it comes directly from the CEO, does it really matter? Husband, son, daughter. A corpse, a robot, a human. All that was left was Michael. Poor, troubled Michael. The boy that killed her youngest. The one that would spend years trying to make his guilty conscience right again. A self-professed protector. While she knew she needed him to complete the family, something told her that the problem had already solved itself. Something had shifted when using Glamrock Freddy to excavate the buried pizza place.
Oh god.
I've been here before. I found myself for the first time when I cleared the path. I have changed. My friends are here, but I can protect you. I am not.
The best part of the game.
Maybe it was the remnant
It is
that
a good
coursed
part,
through
yeah.
Michael's veins. Maybe it was the spirit of Michael living on as a protector, but he was there, somewhere inside of Glamrock Freddy. She could feel it. And just like that, she'd won. She'd done it. Sure, there were still some kinks to work out, some final brainwashing of Vanessa, some rehabilitation of William, but they were there. Finally, all together again under one roof. The Aftons reunited. A happy ending. And that's how it could have ended. That's how it should have ended, had it not been for a few unanticipated developments. For one, something was just wrong with the Pizzaplex. Almost as if the entire building was haunted, possessed. Puppet plushies hiding on ceilings, behind crates, places that they had no earthly way of belonging. Staff bots.
Is he gonna say, like,
greasy
Charlie
tears
is
down
still
their eyes,
around
acting
and, like,
they were
watching
being
and stuff?
puppeteered by some sort of a nightmare. Even their
Probably.
sounds had the echo of nightmares long past. It was as though a guardian spirit of the past refused to move on. As long as her husband was around,
yeah.
it too would linger. Only
Yeah.
now, it wasn't just in one body, but it was in the
I actually
essence
agree with
of
that.
the building itself. She had seen stories of houses built on
Same.
burial grounds getting possessed by angry spirits, but she'd never
But like
assumed
Charlie's
that it
freed
could
and
be
happy as
real.
day,
Then
so
again,
if Charlie's
with
still around, then the
spirit
missing
metal and
kids are too,
mind-controlling
so...
glitches, who was she to be so judgmental?
Maybe.
The whole thing was ridiculous. Why would this be the line that she refused to cross? After all, the Pizzaplex was built over the burial ground of angry spirits, but it was the power cords that finally convinced her that something was wrong. Suddenly, these cords were striped black and white, like the security puppet from generations ago. The very foundations of this place, the materials and wires that constituted it, were rebelling against her, against the Aftons, against the quest to bring them all together again. And it was being helped by something else, something slithering through the building. Maybe they were connected, she couldn't be sure, but a blob of living wires could be heard oozing through the walls, stealing pieces and parts of the old animatronics showcased in Rockstar Row. She could only assume that it
How
was
does he
a
reach that?
byproduct
Let's
of
be
all the
real.
remnant they'd been collecting.
How does he
From
reach
Afton's
them?
testing, she knew that both light and dark remnant existed, one of positive emotions and the other created from anguish, anger, agony. Perhaps this
Agony
thing
moment.
was an amalgamation of all the darkest parts of the pizzeria's history, a collection of the hatred still housed inside these defunct endoskeletons and exosuits. As long as it was left alone, it seemed to be harmless. But if any Afton outside of Michael got too close, it would lash out wildly. Even young Gregory, looking to punish the family that had been complicit in its horrible creation. Little did she know, though, that Gregory should have been her biggest concern, that bringing the family together would have some unforeseen consequences. Gregory was normally the goodest of boys. She had literally built him that way. But lately, he'd been disappearing more and more often, disobeying her orders. Requests. She knew that he loved playing.
She's a really old mother.
Once the Pizzaplex closed, being so good as to top the leaderboard on practically all of them. But lately, he was nowhere to be found. She suspected his absence had to do with Glamrock Freddy's failed performance the other night, when he malfunctioned live on stage. Almost as though the core programming of Freddy responded to seeing this rebuilt small boy. Almost like it awakened something inside of him. She'd have to make sure that Vanessa was on the lookout for him. But she'd soon come to learn that Vanessa wasn't enough. Whether it was the influence of the nightmare puppet or a reawakened hatred of animatronics seated deep
not going
in
to take into
code,
account
something
GGY,
had
is he?
caused
Not
him
really,
to
no.
rebel, to rip apart each animatronic in the Pizzaplex. Bit by bit, this boy was tearing down the empire that she'd so painstakingly built, freeing Vanessa from her mind control, destroying the remains of Afton in the basement, setting Glamrock Freddy loose. As her carefully created world crumbled around her one more time, she began to plot her revenge. She would have to
On her
bring
son.
them all to ruin. And there you have it, my
Oh,
friends.
God.
Nearly a decade in the making, my FNAF timeline for where the franchise is here in 2023. The year of Fazbear Frights, by the way. As always, it wouldn't be right for me to finish without going over some of the more controversial takes that I
Okay,
just
yes,
handed out.
please.
We can all
Please.
agree that this part of the timeline is always going to be the hardest. So let me
Please
just
do
break
so.
down some of the major points. First of all, the biggest swing of this episode, and obviously the one that everything else rests upon, Mrs. Afton being the CEO of Fazbear Entertainment LLC. Here's why
Yeah.
we're on this route. Now, first and foremost, the head of Fazbear Entertainment is the single biggest mystery that we're meant to solve at this point in the lore. The Ultimate Guide brings it up repeatedly. Who's running the show? Who is okaying these decisions? And in the security breach memos, we get multiple mentions of someone manipulating things from the top down. Whoever this is, they are the person driving forward every other facet of late-stage FNAF lore here. They're the puppet master who's hiring the indie dev. They're the ones relaunching the brand, building the Pizzaplex over the burial ground. So everything at the end of the timeline relies on this one singular answer. Now, as I see it, there are two possibilities here. One, an adult robot Elizabeth, like we see older
Oh, God.
versions of robot kids in the fourth closet, or Mrs. Afton. Could it be someone completely new to the franchise? Absolutely yes, but in a game with so many returning faces and repeated themes, it would be pretty random and arbitrary. So, between these two girl bosses, who then would it be? Well, Elizabeth always wants to please her daddy, so she'd be most likely wanting to bring him to life. But then, what's Vanessa's role in all of this? Vanessa is clearly meant to be a parallel for Elizabeth. Same hair, same eyes, similar backstories, but if the main goal is getting the Afton family back together, which seems to clearly be the case in Security Breach, then there's no need for Vanessa to be involved at all. We already have Elizabeth running the show. It would also mean that we suddenly have two robot kids running around, which feels narratively repetitive and quite frankly kind of dumb. Now look at Mrs. Afton. We know next to nothing about her outside of any clues that we can
Outside
get
of her
from Mortal
being
and the
dead.
Restless and Bellora's song. But what her being head of Fazbear does is make
Literally.
every other piece of the lore fit. Suddenly, you can have one of every other type of character. One robot kid in Gregory, one brainwashed human in Elizabeth/Vanessa, one OG corpse in William, and one possessed animatronic in Mike. Narratively, it makes everything else cleaner. Legally, it's also the option that makes the most sense. As I call out in my narrative, she'd likely have some stake in the original company and all of its assets. So as Fazbear folds as a company, I'd suspect a lot of it would return back to her. But there was one clue that really sold me on this particular direction, and that was this right here, in the post-it room. The big lore central of Security Breach, a dinner table scene with the whole family, including the mother. And not only is she there, she is at the head of that table, the position of highest honor and responsibility. She is the one in charge, with William being relegated off to the side. That one scene shows that we have to include Mom in there somewhere, and the only place it makes sense for her to be is at the top. Now, there is one big dilemma with my interpretation of all this. The Ultimate Guide really seems to point out that that the head of Fazbear doesn't want the glitch trap virus to spread. They call out one particular email in FNAF AR where the legal team calls a cease and desist to all action about scanning the circuit boards. And even in FNAF VR, we're told that the circuit boards get stolen back by the client, presumably once they realize what danger is on there, trying to stop glitch trap before he spreads and gets out of hand. Here's the problem with that though, if the head of Fazbear doesn't want Afton to rise again, why'd they restart the company in the first place? Why'd they build over the FNAF 6 pizzeria? Why'd they go through an elaborate cover-up to make
They literally say why they do it in the epilogues.
It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It would be the most inconsistent series of actions ever, but I did want to call attention to it since it seems to be the route that the official guide is trying to steer us towards. Moving on to minor point number 1, the Five Nights at Freddy's games were made by the Rogue
How much longer is left?
developer. Here's the thing, FNAF VR opens with this line.
That's
4
why
minutes.
we've created many of these completely fictitious scenarios, lies, that you've been fed over the last several years into a hilarious VR game.
It's recreating the lies told to you by the indie developer. And since Help Wanted has direct recreations of FNAFs 1 through 3, it means the games must be part of the fabrications that this developer made up. Also, all of this
The
is
literal
heavily
point
implied
of
in the
them
story of
is
the
that
same
they
name, Help
weren't
Wanted
lies.
Tales of Pizzaplex, hence FNAF 1 through 3, canon games within the
That they
lore
were
of the series.
huge.
Big swing number 2, the elephant, or ghost in the room, Charlie infecting the Pizzaplex. John from the channel FNAF has made some great findings about Charlie's influence over the Pizzaplex. The cables that looked like the striped
John
arms of
from
the
the
puppet, the
Foster-
Nightmare own plushies
was it?
that you find hidden across the Pizzaplex in weird places, the staff bots with creepy smiles and in your dreams written on the front. All of these things scream puppets. Plus, the puppet mask not having tears in the blob seems to imply that Charlie's spirit exists elsewhere. She is still in play.
By the way, that's not my mouse on screen.
Especially in Gregory's
That's
post-it.
in the actual
The
picture.
doors to the post-it room in the game's code are called Charlie doors. And inside we see a bunch of lit up Nightmare staff bot heads. Suspicious to say the least. The channel ID's Fantasy did a great theory looking at the
ID's
post-it
Fantasy.
notes, including that the
ID.
crime child / Gregory isn't
Oh,
alone in
nice.
this room, but rather might be communicating with someone. A spirit, Charlie. Charlie's spirit seems to have pulled a poltergeist. Instead of controlling one thing, she's affecting a lot of little details, foundational elements of the Pizzaplex. And this isn't the first time that we've seen this in the franchise either. We've seen spirits communicating with people through physical writing in the survival logbook. So we know that this is an established means of spirit communication within this franchise. And I suspect that to some extent it might be Charlie's influence making Gregory go haywire. Which brings me then to my final and probably biggest controversy in recent FNAF history, Gregory as Patient 46.
Totally agree with that.
I think it's wrong.
You have to agree.
It is a fact. Unfortunately to some people. But
please bring up GGY.
Evil robot mastermind. Now, I know when I first came out with this theory a year ago, people were mad. But
yeah,
here's the
people
thing, you
hated
don't have
it.
to take my evidence points for it anymore. The recent Tales from the Pizzaplex story, GGY,
there it is.
Goes and just outright
Yes.
proves it. In GGY, we find out about a boy named Gregory who's getting all the high scores in the Pizzaplex arcade machine.
He kind of
When
didn't
therapists start
acknowledge
going
the fact
missing, it's
that
confirmed
Gregory's
that
pretty
GGY
clearly
is the one
possessed
that's
by
working
glitch
to
trap,
bump him
though.
off. And when animatronics start getting corrupted by a mysterious glitch, GGY's letters are found inside the code. He even chooses the code name Dr. Rabbit for crying out loud. But obviously, by the time of security breach, Gregory is working against Burn Trap, Vanessa, and the animatronics. Why? How? Well, it's not really clear. I tend to believe that something must have happened to cause him to either lose his memory or be reset in some way. Maybe it was Charlie
The reset.
to him in his post-it room. Maybe he hit his head. Maybe it was the connection that he made with
Psychic
Mike
gets the
on
reset.
stage in Glamrock Freddy. Not exactly sure, and I don't think we have enough clues to solve any of it yet. But it makes sense from a story perspective why he'd start off evil on Afton's side and then switch to trying to destroy him and not knowing who he is in security breach. And with that, my friends, I'm wrapping this thing up. Congratulations, we are on page 40. 22,000 words of FNAF, baby. Practically just wrote myself a Tales of the Pizzaplex short story. Have I answered everything? No. Does everything fit cleanly? No.
No.
Does it feel like the best and most cohesive narrative for all these characters that addresses most of the evidence we're given?
No.
Yeah. For me, honestly, it really does. And let's be honest with ourselves, the DLC will probably come out later this year.
Some of it is
Prove me
cool
completely
narratively,
wrong.
but
It'd be the first
doesn't
then
make
comes
sense.
The movie, whatever.
Like,
My descent into madness continues.
with
But
the
regardless, I am so proud of this. This was a massive
cannot wait for
undertaking.
the
And I'm so
DLC.
proud of our
Me
editors
neither.
who have just destroyed the editing.
I'm
across all
honestly
4 of these
expecting it to
installments.
release,
You guys are the best.
like, the
Thank you
anniversary
for
of
pushing
FNAF.
through on 20+ minute uploads.
Interesting.
You are unreal.
I think it's
and
gonna
your
be a bit
talent
earlier
is
than that, to be
unrivaled.
honest.
I'm so lucky to work with you guys every single day. And like I mentioned before, keep an eye on the channel for an announcement regarding a
I'm honestly
callback
more
live stream
excited
with
for the
some special
DLC
guests,
than the
as I I right? Was I wrong? I want to hear your feedback.
I don't know
That
whether
one's
or not
coming up
I
soon.
am.
And with that, my friends, we can finally rest. I can leave the demon to its demons with one final reminder that it was all just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for watching.
So.
Okay.
Huh.
That was interesting.
I disagree with some of that, but like the fact that the idea of it being Mrs. Afton is the most outstanding part that I disagree with,
like,
I guess.
Like, it's all like circumstantial proof, I feel like.
Yeah, and I just don't think the timing works.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know you don't think
I think a lot of it is good. Just Mrs. Afton's whole thing is just, nah, no way. Can't be.
I'm pretty sure the point of Mrs. Afton as a character is that she gets divorced with William and dies. so
Yeah.
I feel like this is
It's literally Mrs. Afton.
the 100-year-old just rebuilding the family as a mother. More
I don't
like
think she'd be
great-grandmother,
100
bro.
at this point.
I think she would, because based on like where he put William's age in the timeline, he was probably like in his timeline he would probably have William at like 10 by like the 30s. So
he could have married young.
unless William is a pedophile, which honestly I wouldn't be that surprised about.
No, I'm not saying like. I mean, listen, if you're of legal age, you can marry anyone. Just saying.
Only if they are too, though.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Just like imagine William being 50 and marrying like a 20-year-old.
I doubt that. But oh yeah, going back to what I was saying about Ruin's release. You know how there's like the Security Breach TV thing, right? That's beginning April 6th. Security Breach TV started like September 1st around, and then Security Breach came out 3.5 months later. So if it follows like the same kind of timeline, then it would be about 4 months later would be the anniversary of FNAF. So it could be that they release it then. That could work.
Come on, everyone knows that FNAF SB comes out next week.
What?
Literally.
Sure. Real facts.
That's
I honestly think it's gonna be earlier,
confirmed.
That's the CCC server inside joke.
It could come out earlier, I don't know. But I feel like it's probably a little bit later. We have been recording for 41 minutes.
Plus the Dark Rooms episode we just recorded.
Yeah.
In that case, I think we're gonna end this episode here. If you enjoyed it, hit subscribe. Subscribe to Evan.
What happened?
He's really cool.
Yeah, this is my video.
Yeah.
What happened to Ozone though? Like he was gonna turn this into a video as well, but then he just disappeared.
I think he might have just gotten busy.
Maybe. Yeah. I hope you all enjoyed this video.
He's online.
Subscribe to Psychic and Arcade Endo if you have not already. Well, it's been real. We're gonna end the video. I pulled my PC. Yeah, hope you guys enjoyed.
Pulled my PC by accident.
Hope
That's
you guys
just
enjoyed.
a theory.
That's a
game theory. Thanks for watching.
Okay. Well, that's all. Bye, guys. Say goodbye.
Peace.
Goodbye, humans.
Goodbye, humans. Peace. All right. See you guys later. Bye.